Welcome to another episode of the Pod Between Worlds. Today we're going to talk about some Thrawn whiteboard series canon. Ollie's going to be going in depth talking about Thrawn and his place in Star Wars canon. And then we're going to speculate on where the heroes are and what they're going to do after episode 9. Coming in hot.
All right, what do we got, host?
So news-wise, we have... So what I just read is that Project Maverick was supposed to be revealed... Well, supposedly it was supposed to be revealed today, and then it's going to be delayed a week. Project Maverick is the project of Project Maverick. It's supposedly a Star Wars video game that is going to be a bit like a flight sim.
That's our guess.
That's our guess. Yeah, there hasn't really been much details on it. I don't know if you've seen anything.
Hopefully, it's like not Rogue One. Sorry. Hopefully, it's like a Rogue Squadron. No, just like the picture and what people have kind of messed with and guessed. But I'm excited for an announcement because, like, God, we talk about it so much, but like, we need a Star Wars video game. Let's go.
I know, like. That's one thing I was talking. I forgot who I was talking to the other day, and I was just explaining. I was like, these, or maybe it was Reddit. It might have been Reddit, and I was on there, and someone was mentioning that it had nothing to do with Project Maverick. I think it was related to Battlefront 2, and then they were talking about like, oh, it'd be cool if we got like an update to Battlefront 2 or something like that. Which is odd because they just got their final update.
Right.
And I was like, EA has been pretty disappointing. I mean, they, like we've discussed, is that they've released 2 Battlefronts, which that's already an established video game.
Right.
And then Fallen Order, which is great, and then a couple mobile games. And
yeah, and it's important to know that EA is not like a studio. EA is like a conglomerate. They own a bunch of studios. So it's not like they have unlimited resources to get games out there. It's crazy. Yeah, it's not like it's one studio that's like, all right, all our focus is on Fallen Order. We can't do anything else. No, there should have been 5 games being worked on while that came out, And
I don't know if that's a situation where it's sorry, my phone's like just blown up. I don't know if it's a situation where that they just because of the canon and the lore that they're like, we can't really, they have to dance around everything and the writing and stuff like that. But
right.
To me, okay, so Project Maverick, let's say this is going to be the new, like, awesome game that comes out for Star Wars that actually has something besides a flight sim, because I feel like that would be kind of weak. Well, if it's like a No Man's Sky, I have to get that out because that's in my head. And I'm like, if they go in that route, that might actually be wicked cool. You've played No Man's Sky, right?
Yeah. Yep. I played a good amount, probably like 40, 50 hours. But so not a good amount.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew you dabbled in it. I didn't realize you played that much.
Yeah. But I built a base, surfed around a little bit. I was hoping some friends would get it, but nobody got it. So I haven't really done much with it. I wanted to see it after like what was it called? Next came out, which was the big update that fixed a lot of stuff. So it's fun. Yeah, I mean, anything like that in the Star Wars universe. I think if it's a flight sim,
game, right?
No, it's on Xbox, I believe. I think I have it on Xbox and play it on PC, like that Xbox Play Anywhere kind of thing.
Like
no, Valorant's a PC game. But yeah, I think it'll be more. I think even if it's a flight simulator game, I think there'll be other elements. I mean, I don't think anything they're releasing right now is going to be too basic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. Even if it's like a Rogue Squadron, I'd be in for some. I mean, it's just something. But like we're talking about, the realistic point of it is the bummer is so they moved it back a week. This is just the announcement. Like they haven't even officially announced. The only reason we heard of it is because it like leaked on a PS5 store, right, or PS4 store or something, or PlayStation store in general. So even if we get the announcement next week, so you say this rumor is true. I mean, when's the earliest the game's coming out? Fall. Maybe?
I don't even
like it's
know.
not coming out next week. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to hear. I'm just saying I don't want to get too excited.
I mean, I don't want to set expectations too high. I mean, it's just the hearing the flight sim aspect, I'm like, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not my favorite on what type of game. I'd prefer.
But like, if it's like No Man's Sky,
it's not No Man's Sky. That'd be cool though.
That would be. I would be more interested in that because then it's like, oh, now you're exploring.
I mean, everybody would. Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's an opportunity for EA to kind of like, all right, you know what, we're going to contribute to some of the lore of Star Wars and actually give like the franchise some, some meat to it rather than let's just recycle. Let's make Battlefront 3. Like,
I think the leak had an X-wing and a Star Destroyer, right? So, it's going to at least be set in the Imperial timeline, most likely, if what we saw was true.
Is that an X-wing?
I think it's an X-wing. Like, it looks like X-wing's running away from like a Star Destroyer in the leaked image. But it was weird. I never saw it for real, so I don't know. I didn't see it on the PS4 store. So I don't know how much was. People could have just made up the image. You know what I mean? So, and people could be making up this leak, but it'd be exciting if it was true.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, a lot of video games do leak because of that. Like someone accidentally puts it in the store like as a template, and then it just gets.
I feel like a lot of those are like the sequel ones, not like brand new games. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully next week they reveal it. It's probably because of COVID and the protests and everything going on. So
a lot of things got backed up. So
yeah. So hopefully we get some clarity on that.
Yeah.
But besides that, I mean, there hasn't been anything in the news recently. So I think we'll just kick off our Thrawn discussion.
Yeah, you want me to get into the Thrawn? I'm gonna
get into the Thrawn. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just switch this up here so it's a little bit bigger, so maybe we can see the. Can you see that any better? Let me swing my mic too. Can you still hear me pretty good?
I can hear you.
I'm here. Okay.
You cut me out. What the hell, man?
I can hear you, but I'm just trying to.
I know, but the audience wants to see my pretty face, man. They want to see me.
They can see it after the Thrawn. So, all right, let's get into it. I have two slides. Basically, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go Thrawn at like a 10,000-foot view, right? So, like, for our listeners that are excited about getting into some of the non-movie or TV show canon, right? Thrawn was in the TV shows for a little bit. Want some books to read and want to get deeper into the Star Wars mythos, Thrawn's a perfect place to start. Obviously, we talk about him a lot because he's an important character in Legends, and they've made him a pretty important character in canon. The new trilogy, like we've talked about, maybe damp into that, but maybe not. We don't know where his story ends. So he's really involved in Rebels, which Steve just rewatched. So let me just give you the breakdown. There's a few spoilers, so if you're going to get into Thrawn anyways, maybe tune out. But if you need a reason to get into him, I'm just going to go lightly over everything, and then we can go from there. All right, so Thrawn, who is he? All right, his full name is actually Mithron Yorodo. In his language, obviously tough to say in basic, so he kind of takes the middle here, and he says, call him Thrawn. Easy enough. What race is he? He's Chiss. Blue skin, red eyes. He's got black hair. But most of the Chiss, if not all that we've seen, blue skin, red eyes. Kind of freaky looking, very humanoid. So it's basically a human looking guy. Again, blue skin, red eyes. Where are they from? They're from Scylla. This is the big thing. This is why you don't see basically any of them in any of the movies. They're from the unknown region. So quick breakdown. You got the Star Wars galaxy, right? Towards the outer rim, which is basically the outside of the galaxy, is what kind of the backworld planets, right?
Yep.
Still known space. There's still hyperlanes, and you can get there for they were in the Republic, in the Imperial era. Those are all still in known space, if you will, right? Like we know how to get there. They're part of the galaxy, kind of deal. You have wild space, which is relatively mapped, or not mapped. You can get there, and it's not super dangerous. It's just not mapped. It's kind of like the New World kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So they're kind of going that way to discover stuff. The unknown regions is kind of like wild space, except it's super dangerous. Like, you don't really go there. There's a bunch of... Thrawn loosely describes it. It's kind of like... there's, like, nebulas and stuff, and planets or stars exploded millions of years ago. So, like, the hyperlanes are always changing. So, like, nobody really goes out there. So there's a bunch of planets, races, governments, who knows, out in these unknown regions that really aren't part of the Star Wars galaxy in the stories that we know. Palpatine was super, we've talked about it before a little bit on the podcast. Palpatine was super interested in this area because he thought there was some kind of dark side energy out there that he could come from. This is also where the First Order goes and kind of revamps, where the leftover Imperials go to revamp and become the First Order, right? So the Chiss are out there. They're a big deal out there. They know a lot, and so that's why they're not a major part of the galaxy, right? So he's from out there. Who is he affiliated with over his career, right? So he's obviously in the Chiss Ascendancy. That's kind of their government structure. He's part of the Chiss Expansionary Defense Fleet. That's like their Imperial Navy, all right? Pretty simple. And then, as we see throughout his career, he kind of introduces himself on purpose to the Galactic Empire and becomes, and joins the Imperial Navy, all right? So that's kind of where major parts of his story take place. His main adversaries over his storyline so far is Neville Signy, also known as Night Swan, the Rebel crew, the Ghost crew from Rebels the show. So Hera, Kanan, Zeb, Ezra, Sabine, that group is kind of his main adversary for a while. And then this is the big one. This is not in the TV show, but is in the books, the Grisks. This is a big one because this is kind of what makes Thrawn interesting in canon. These are a race of aliens that are also from the unknown regions, that basically the broader picture is that the Chiss think that there are bigger problems in the galaxy than the Empire and stuff like that. Like, they think that there's this huge evil out in the unknown regions. The Grisks are kind of, they're not sure if that's completely the whole story, but the Grisks are part of that. So a big part of why Thrawn comes and kind of joins the Imperial Navy is to check out if they're going to be helpful to the Chiss when this threat comes to bear. For those of you who are like big into Legends, you know, the non-canon stuff, the Grisks are kind of the canon's play right now on the Yuzong Vong. They have a similar appearance from the books. We haven't seen them drawn, and we haven't seen them in cartoons or any live action, so we don't actually know exactly what they look like, but the way they describe them is similar to how you would describe the Yuzong Vong. So hopefully they do it, when they do it, hopefully they do it a little bit better. The Yuzong Vong storyline, I think, had a cool core, but it got a little messy. I don't know if you read any of those, Steve.
Yep.
But, so I think they could do a better job with it. Pretty cool. All right, so what is he known for? So what are the big things with Thrawn? All right, so he was a Grand Admiral in the Imperial Navy. There was only 12 in the Imperial Navy when he became a Grand Admiral, so it's a big time, excuse me, big time rank, right? He's the only non-human. He's really the only non-human that we know of in the Imperial Navy power structure at all. It was basically all humans. So it's a big deal. They wear a pretty stark white uniform that stands out because everything else is kind of like that green or gray that you see. All right, he is known for his personal Imperial Star Destroyer, okay, the Chimera. Pretty cool. This was also his ship in Legends. It's the only Star Destroyer I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that has like artwork on the bottom.
Yep.
So when it flies over, you can see these kind of like, looks like snake heads. It's really unique. So it's unique to him. So it's definitely a big part of his character, okay? When he's the Grand Admiral, he's the head of the 7th Fleet, all right? Pretty big fleet. There's a ton of Imperial Class 1 and 2 Star Destroyers, Gazantes, Interdictors. I mean, you can go on and on. There's a bunch of different classes of ships if you're into that. But the 7th Fleet is a pretty big deal, okay? So he heads that whole thing from the Chimera. His personality and really what makes him... this is what didn't change, okay, from Legends. This is why he was a super interesting character, and this is why it's awesome that he's back in canon and that he's doing this thing. He's an absolute master tactician, right? So that we know of. He doesn't use the Force or anything like that, but he always is like 2 steps ahead of his adversaries. He just seems to know everybody's next move, 2 or 3 moves down the line. Like he's just he's like chess master, right? Yep. 2 of the things in the books that they kind of play off of, he reads body language really, really well. So he can tell when someone's nervous, he can tell when someone's hiding something, he can tell when someone's maybe going to be aggressive, right? He's like really good at reading body language. He has a little bit of a cheat with body language too, that humans can't see. He mentions it a couple times in the books. Chiss can see into the infrared a little bit further than humans, so he can also see like fluctuations in your facial temperature. So if you're like blushing or nervous, you know what I mean, he can see that. The other interesting one that they've played up is his ability to look at artwork. So when he's going to attack, or he has a mission to subdue, or anything like that, anything he can use, he'll look at the culture or the planet or the region's artwork that he's going to battle with, and he can find different things. Like he'll look at the artwork. They explain it interesting in the book. I think this one's kind of funky because it's really hard to do, but he'll like see, oh, they never make the first move because their art says this. You know what I mean? I don't know how you felt about that in the books, but I think it's neat, but it's definitely an odd one.
I mean, I thought it fit him. I mean, his personality.
It's cool. No one else does it, right?
Right. It's different. I mean, it definitely, it makes him more sophisticated as a leader. So
right.
I think it adds more depth to him. So that, I think
they needed an extra thing of like explaining why he's that much smarter than everyone else, right? So yeah. I think it's worth it. It's just, it's kind of funky. It's a really neat thing. And then basically his general appearance, right? So he's creepy to a lot of people because of the glowing red eyes, blue skin. But his big thing is his personality. He's seen almost as cold by a lot of people. He's just super analytical, with just kind of a flat, in charge personality. It even goes so far as like it may be a Chiss thing because Darth Vader in a couple of these books, Darth Vader and Anakin obviously can kind of probe people's minds, and they constantly say that there's like no emotion betrayed, or rarely ever is there any kind of emotion betrayed in his thoughts. It's like this organized spreadsheet of information. So he doesn't really, he approaches it different than a human. You know what I mean? He's just like uber analytical, almost to the point where like in some situations it seems like he has no heart, like he doesn't care, because he's just going with all the knowledge, and he's making the best, cutthroat decision sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's basically Thrawn from 10,000 feet, right? You think I missed anything you wanted to add? I switch slides right here, so go ahead.
What I would add, I guess, I thought that was great. The only thing I would probably mention is where you can find Thrawn, I guess, besides the TV show. He's in Rebels, and then there's also, okay, perfect. So, as you can see, there's the canon. There's the canon novels right there on the left, and then with the TV show as well. So you got 3 novels. You got Thrawn Alliances, and Thrawn Treason. Thrawn is more of an intro to him joining the Empire. Thrawn Alliances is him teaming up with Darth Vader and having some flashbacks of when Thrawn had his first encounters with the Republic, actually. And then Thrawn Treason is that brings more of the Chiss background into the light. It kind of adds more depth, and then also the Grisk threat and everything.
Yeah, and this happens right in the middle of the Rebel seasons, which is cool. So if you're watching Rebels, this book is the reason he leaves Lothal and leaves Arminda Pryce in control.
Right.
So I'll pick up from there just because some of it, I don't know if you can read all of it. Thrawn 1 through 6 is a comic series that basically goes through the novel. Rebels, obviously, what Steve just finished, enters in season 3, and he's pretty much, he's not in every episode, but he's in it from season 3 to the end. There's an upcoming series of novels, first one being Chaos Rising. These are supposed to take place before, so a quick timeline is basically what we know from him so far. He met Anakin sometimes towards the end of the Clone Wars. I'm actually just finishing up Alliances where they go over that. Anakin mentions that, or Padme mentions that Ahsoka's no longer his Padawan at this time, so it's happening pretty close to the end of the Clone Wars. He helps Anakin on a mission. He's just kind of in the Outer Rim. I won't spoil it too much. But so we see him make first contact kind of with the known Star Wars universe then, and then flash forward to kind of when he purposely does the whole exile thing to get into the Imperial Navy to basically scout the Empire to see if they're going to be a hindrance to the Chiss against the Grisks or the unknown threat, or if they're going to be an ally. But this gets into kind of his career in the Chiss expansionary defense fleet. So it'll be interesting. Maybe it ends at the point where he goes on that mission with Anakin, because he's on that mission to find out this shield technology. That's specifically what they're after. So that'll be interesting. He's mentioned in Empire's End, actually, which I found interesting. He's mentioned when they're talking about Palpatine being interested in the unknown regions and having mapped out stuff and having little like watchtower posts kind of throughout the unknown regions. Thrawn supposedly is the one that helped with that. So that's all the canon that he's in. And then if you're interested, if you get super into him, the Legends version where he originated and kind of how he became what he is super interesting too. He is in Heir to the Empire and Dark Forces Rising and Last Command. This is the trilogy that he's in. Really, really good. You've read those, Steve?
I've read Heir to the Empire.
Okay. So this trilogy is excellent. Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command. I highly recommend it. If you were going to read any Legends books, I'd recommend this and the Bane novels first. They're awesome. Then there's this duology of books. So Spectre, the Past, and Vigilance in the Future. It's based on the same storyline. This kind of happens after. So this was when Star Wars, the gap after Return of the Jedi, and there wasn't really a ton of Star Wars. So this was kind of the launching of the expanded universe, as it was called at the time. So this all takes place in the same timeline. These happen after this. So it's part of Thrawn's story, really. And then Outbound Flight and Crisis of Faith were two other novella kind of things that he's in. All interesting stuff. I haven't read Crisis of Faith, but I've read the rest of them. And they're really good, top-notch stuff. So so that wraps it up for the Thrawn introduction, Star Wars Academy style, whiteboard style. So if you have any questions, get back to us. And certainly, if we're going to be doing more of these whiteboard series. So certainly, if you have any characters, we're not really going to do anything on like the main characters. But like if people are interested in a certain character out there there'll be longer ones and shorter ones. Thrawn obviously has a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. But, maybe like in Ahsoka, some of the bigger characters first that aren't, major characters in the movies. But if anyone has someone that they're super interested in, we can do a breakdown. We'll try to add these in here or there on shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ollie. I think that was a good intro to the whiteboard series.
Yeah, I'd like to do a cleaned up one, but yeah, I just wanted to get it out there because I thought it was pretty good information. I think, like you've said, a lot of the listeners are into Star Wars, but not fully there. You know what I mean? So I think Thrawn's kind of one of those ancillary characters that I think some people don't know how much is out there about him.
I think one of the intriguing things too with Thrawn is that if you're listening and you have read both the books and the TV show, if you watch both, you'll see there are some differences between the TV show and the books, like how the books portray him and how they make you. He's kind of like in the books, he's more of the anti-hero.
Yeah, he's the good guy kind of. Yeah, yep.
Where in the TV show, he's definitely the bad guy. So it's like it's very interesting. I read the books before I actually watched Rebels, so I actually, when I first saw Thrawn in Rebels, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, he actually seems like he's an actual, like, bad guy.
Yeah, I do find it interesting with those books like that in the Bane novels and even in the Legend novels with Thrawn, because he was lined up against Luke, Leia, and Han. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was always the bad guy, but I think in canon they've set him up. I always felt like this in Legends, but he was continuing on the Emperor's role and reign, and when he's up against Luke, Leia, and Han, he definitely was more the bad guy. They've set him up in canon nicely, like we've talked about a little bit, to kind of become even more than an anti-hero. They've set him up to be way as analytical as he was, but they've also set him up to be a little more wary of the Empire. Like, he's not fully invested in the, you know what I mean? He's about the chiss. So if, you know, he doesn't see the Empire as something he needs to take down, like order and structure and stuff like that is what it is. Obviously, there's going to be oppression in his mind, you know what I mean? Because he's thinking the Grisk and this big force is going to take over the galaxy. That's the big bad guy. So he's not really worried about the things happening in the Empire, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Which set him up to be a good guy, you know. Good is loose. He's always going to be kind of cold and analytical, but he's not evil, in other words.
No, definitely a different personality.
Yep.
All right. I think we'll then dive into a canon question or more speculation. So I'll just ask you, Ollie. Where do you see the heroes of Episode 9? After Episode 9, where do you see their paths going, or what would you like to see with Poe, Finn, and Rey particularly?
Yeah, I think it's a good one. I think it's interesting. I'll be completely honest. This isn't going to happen. What I'm about to say, so let me take a step back. I do think eventually we will get, even if it's not called 10, 11, 12. I do think we'll get the future. Right, of Rey and Finn and Poe. How far in the future, I don't know. But we're going to get stories like that, maybe 5, 10, 15 years down the road. That's going to be the next Star Wars, right? It's going to happen. They're just not going to leave it. So what I would like is, because like me and you have talked about, and especially getting off of this Thrawn whiteboard, just kind of on that theory, I think they set up the Grisk to be the new Yuzong Vong, and I think they set it up to be this ultimate bad guy, which we've never seen in Star Wars, right? We've always seen the Sith, right? Which are bad guys, but they're still part of the universe, right? The Sith, even in the Sith heyday, they weren't just killing everyone, right? They wanted to rule. They didn't want to wipe out the galaxy. You know what I mean? So as much as they're bad, don't get me wrong, they're bad, but then the normal people were going to survive. It may be a worse life, you know what I mean? But like, those people were never in danger. You know what I mean? Obviously, there was some sketchy stuff that happened with the Empire blowing up planets, but you know what I'm saying? In general, the citizens of the galaxy weren't at extreme danger, you know what I mean, of either thing winning. The Yuzong Vong presents this thing of like their race and their goal is to literally just wipe out the galaxy and just be the only thing left. So if they turn the Grisk into this, I think you could find an amazing build up to like Ezra and Thrawn not being found until after by Rey, like they were lost this whole time. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. This is the thing that's not going to happen, because as me and you have talked about, they're probably going to bring Ezra back in this sequel series, which is going to happen somewhere in that 30-year gap between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens.
Yeah.
So yeah, where I'd like to see him, I would like to see Rey. I would like to see Rey become basically, I would almost like to see the story. This is going to sound funny. This is what, it's taken me a long time to get here. I'm sorry, I'm long-winded. But basically, I'd almost like to see the expanded universe story of the new Jedi Order all the way to the Yuzong Vong. Not exactly the same, obviously, but like the elements of that. I would like to see that. And now you replace Luke with Rey. You replace loosely Leia with Poe, Han with Finn. You know what I mean? Generally, again, the stories are going to change, right? But basically, Poe's going to be in charge of the Republic Navy, if you will, whatever the armed forces of the new Republic are, right? He's going to be like the leader of that. Finn's kind of more that wild card that's going to go do good across the galaxy, I think. Maybe be part of the Navy, but almost like a Lando, right? Where he's part of the group, but he goes and does his own thing. You know what I mean? And then Rey to be the Luke in that scenario and rebuild the Jedi Order, you know? And then, you know, whatever they want to do with it. I wouldn't mind like Rey and Finn being a thing and having kids. Like, I'd be down with that, but I don't know if Finn's better served doing his own thing, you know what I mean? And separating the big three for a little while. I think that's always an effective storytelling mode. Maybe, you know, maybe then Finn comes back and then they get married or something. I think the Finn Rey thing works well from their storylines, but I think they'd have to make it more interesting than just like kumbaya. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that, I know, a little long-winded, but basically I'd love to see it. I would love to see it play out the way that the expanded universe had it, just with these new characters, maybe a slight spin, use the Grisk, do a little bit better version of the Yuzong Vong, you know what I mean? But make them scary. Develop this new Jedi Order and the New Republic, or whatever stupid name we have to come up with at that point after the New Republic folds, you know what I mean? Whatever the government is, let it build all back up, let everything kind of be powerful again, slightly, maybe not like ultimate, but let Rey build a Jedi Order where there's many Jedi, and then start to sneak this Grisk thing in and make that the big bad guy at the end of the series, you know?
Okay.
That's my dream for the new thing. But they're going to get rid of Thrawn and Ezra and the whole Grisk thing in this new series, so.
Wow, okay.
Not being negative, I just think that's what's going to happen. Dave Filoni wrote the story, right? I think he has the idea for it, so if they're going to put that series in the middle there, that's when it's going to happen. He's not going to leave it on the shelf.
Wait, he came up with the Grisk thing?
No. I'm saying it fits into his like Rebels thing with Zahn. So,
yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question or I mean, the most common thing I've actually read quite a bit that everyone thinks that Rey would start a Jedi Order, so that doesn't.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying anything crazy. I think.
No. I mean, the Finn and Rey thing, I'm not sure. I mean, you would think with the movies they would have went in that direction, but at the same time, the movies kind of just went in a different direction. Then you had Ben Solo and her at Episode 9. So that said, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I haven't really thought about this, where I'd like it to go or where I think it would go. I think Poe would be a natural fit for being a commander of whatever, like you're saying, like whatever government rises.
The new Leia kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's just the path that he would go on. I don't think he would. I can't see him doing anything else. I mean,
I should caveat that with the new Leia, I don't think he'd really get into politics. I think he'd be like the general, but more of like a do as I do kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I don't think he'd have the it'd be different. Like,
yeah. Rey, I mean, the whole Jedi Order thing, like that's the most common thing. So, I mean, I don't know what else she would do. I mean, no, I guess the only thing I would say, if they were going to continue the story, my hope is they don't just keep rehashing the same shit over and over again. Like,
she seems like someone who would go travel, right? But they already did that with Luke, so it'd be weird to just like have at the end of the series every main Jedi just like go traveling the universe.
Well, what I mean is that they start the government and then it falls.
Right. Well,
like that whole thing, like,
it's not uncommon in real life.
No, it's not uncommon, but like it's kind of like, all right, how many times are you going to do this? Like the government, like all I'm saying is come up with something more unique than that. So so
not the brand new Republic. That's not what they're going to call it.
Yeah, the brand new, the new Republic,
the
woke Republic,
the newborn Republic.
Oh my God, I don't know.
The born again Republic.
Born again Republic. Honestly, I feel like there has to be more explanations to the Sith. I'm still on, like, I know I've talked about this a lot, that I'm very intrigued with the Sith, only because there's not a ton of stuff that's come out in Star Wars in terms of their backstory. So I think this could be a good opportunity for her to kind of maybe start hunting some of that stuff down. Like, actually start looking into...
She is part Palpatine, right?
Yeah, like what, like they don't really answer. I mean, The novel kind of answers a little bit, but it still doesn't answer everything about the Sith. There's still a lot of questions that remain open. Maybe, introduce, or maybe have her kind of go on an adventure with that, like trying to, piece everything together.
I like that. I think for me, it's better served in the past to like go back to an old Republic. But no, I agree. I mean, I think the Sith are cool. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe the whole thing that could tie it in is figuring out her heritage. I mean, she comes from Palpatine, so maybe learning about Palpatine and then learning about his upbringing and what he came from. Maybe that's how they tie it together, and maybe that could be another story. But, I mean that's one of the things I feel like is sorely missing from this universe is that there's not a ton of canon, I should say, of this is why this has started. This is, all the stuff that, in EU and
the original break off thing. Yeah.
All that stuff. So like if some way they can incorporate some of that stuff into a new story, maybe with the new heroes, that would be cool. Or maybe introduce a whole different side of the Force that we don't even know. Maybe explore World Between Worlds a little bit. Maybe something in that realm that we haven't really gotten a clear-cut explanation on. The universe is the galaxy's huge, so there might be. They could easily introduce something completely different, or like you were saying, the Grisk. Well, if they brought the Grisk thread in, like that would make almost too much sense. Maybe time-wise it might not make sense, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, it would be different if it was like, oh, now we got to survive an invasion of alien species. Like, that's not something that they've really dealt with before.
That's what I'm saying. I think that would be cooler, yeah. I think that'd be neat.
Yeah, so...
so I'll leave you with this for that. What if Dave Filoni put in the World Between Worlds to erase the sequel trilogy? Because you basically could, right? Rey finds access to the World Between Worlds, and she like transports to a certain timeline, and like then they could rewrite. Yeah, she gets like warped back to 5 years after Return of the Jedi, or like 7 years after Return of the Jedi, becomes Luke's student, and then they can rewrite the sequel trilogy.
Oh my god! Did that come? So my question would be: did World Between Worlds come out before Last Jedi? I feel like it probably came out after.
That's a good question. I don't know. It was season 4, right?
Season 4, which was 2018. I'll look that up quickly.
Well, if it was 2018, wasn't Last Jedi 2017?
I believe so. Let's see. So, no.
Let's put it this way.
2017.
Let's put it this way. It was written before Last Jedi came out. You know what I'm saying?
It was... Hold, please. It was, let's see. Season 4. It's 2018. It was... no, 2017. December 18th, 2017. I think Last Jedi was that Christmas. Yeah. No, Last Jedi was 3 days before that. So it is plausible.
But the point is, it was written before that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is plausible that World Between Worlds is a possibility of erasing all the bullshit that Last Jedi.
That's not.
I'm on board. I'm on board with that 100%.
I knew you'd like that. Yeah.
I would love that. That would be great if Rey just accidentally erases shit, and then like we actually get a fulfilling finish of like Luke's life and everything, rather than the garbage that we got handed.
I mean, it's there, right?
It's there. I'm just saying, but I mean, it would be. But then again, I don't know. So okay, there's another thing. What if they bring in past and present and future, like time skipping and stuff like that more?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The World Between Worlds let them get to. I'm not saying they did this because of this, but it allowed them to It allowed them to explore maybe in like I could see it being something in comics where they could do something very similar, like the Marvel, like the different, what do they call them? The different timelines, just the different universes or whatever. The World Between Worlds could create that, right? So I could see like a spin-off kind of wacky canon based like comic series that the World Between World changes events. You know what I mean? Like it'd be a good way to almost like mess with a video game that like, because the thing they're worried about is like, oh, if it's canon, then you can't choose everything in a video game. Well, they could like be like, well, this is canon. It's a canon video game, except it was affected by the World Between Worlds. So nothing, you know what I mean? Nothing happened in that timeline.
See, that's the thing that's so. See, that's one thing I don't like about the canon thing with video games, is that all they have to do is just say it's not part of canon. Why can't they just fucking do that?
I think it's a marketing thing. I think they're afraid people won't buy it if it's not part of canon.
Jesus Christ. I mean, that's just... Yeah, just one of the other...
It's not hard. All they have to do is put it... They just should put it in a different timeline.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or like you said, just call it... But this is what I'm saying. The World Between Worlds, however confusing it is, could give you the marketing ploy to say it's canon. And then the excuse when someone goes, hey, I killed Luke, is like, oh, you were this canon universe happened in like Ezra threw a rock through the World Between Worlds and it hit Palpatine in the head when he was a senator. So he, you know what I mean? Like you could basically like cheeseball it. I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying it's an option if you are trying to get around some stuff. You know what I mean? The World Between Worlds creates that Marvel thing of the different timelines.
Have they done video game like? Have they done a video game like that where like you can change the events of Star Wars?
I don't think so. I mean, that's really only a problem in like open world games. That's why that's like one of the excuses for not having like a like a Skyrim or well, what Galaxies was, right? What Galaxies was and what the Old Republic was. That's the excuse for like in a mass multiplayer game, is that if it was canon and it was in the universe, different things would happen based on players and then it wouldn't line up with the storyline. You know, most of the games that we have, even the ones from the Legends, don't really mess with it because you can, you know, like you're playing as Luke and you die in a level, but you respawn until you beat the level, and the end of the level, you beat Palpatine. So just like Fallen Order is canon, there's a million different ways to do stuff. At the end of the day, though, the story still hits the same places. You defeat the same people. The story ends the same. You know what I mean? So it can be canon.
I guess so. I mean,
it's the open world thing that's the problem for them in that timeline. It's timeline and open world. It's easy to solve. Go outside the timeline. Just go to a different time, and you're fine. Or do the World Between World things. Or say it's not canon. Right. There are your three options.
Yep. Because like that's if that's why they're limiting themselves,
you can just call it based on canon. Yeah, based on canon. You know what I mean?
Everything Marvel put out, is that all canon?
No. I don't know how Marvel does it.
Video game out, it's not necessarily canon. Everything from I mean, it's different because Star Wars is movies, Marvel is comics. First,
it came from a place that had multiple timelines. Yeah,
right. But my point is, they still don't look at it as like everything's canon. Like
I got you.
All your
it's not a big deal. I honestly think it's an excuse that's thrown out there. I don't think it's a. I think if EA had a great game that they were developing, I don't think it would be a bad. You know what I mean? I don't think it would be held up because of that.
Yeah.
Or what you do is you make a canon game, an open world game after Rise of Skywalker, right? And anything can happen. And then if you decide to go back and do the movies or the books in 10 years, you just see that game wasn't canon and everybody already bought it and played it. So it doesn't matter.
True. I just
if I'm just taking the side of like how you do it if you want to stay with canon, right? I'm not saying that that's the right way to do it. I'm just saying that those are the workarounds. If your goal, if the company line is the game has to be canon, you know. All right.
Yeah.
It's canon. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Maybe we can discuss that another time. I mean, that's
we're hitting our time limit here, but so hopefully there's some Maverick news next week. And then maybe this weekend we'll get to our Clone Wars thing. I've been slowly watching that last season, just to kind of write down some stuff. We'll just do our final recap on that if you want.
Yeah. So I think that's going to conclude our episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Feel free to subscribe to us. We're now affiliate on Twitch, so we have subscriptions and everything. So also subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, all the streaming networks. We're all over the place. So hopefully we have some more news on Project Maverick next week. Hopefully we have some other news updates too. Maybe they're just holding out on us, but and then Ollie's gonna be doing the whiteboard series more with different topics like he was saying earlier. So it'll be pretty cool to see where that takes off.
All right, man.
We'll catch you all later, Padawans.
Later.